Welcome back to the Brotagonists Podcast. I'm your bro host, Carter.
And I'm your bro host, Mason.
And today is a very Middle-earth heavy day. We will be exploring The Hobbit, the beginning of Middle-earth, the beginning of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth world. And then we will be discussing a mythic matchup between the Hound and Boromir. And then coming on after that, we'll be talking about and discussing the Hobbit trilogy directed by Peter Jackson. And so get out your swords from Middle-earth and tune in.
And you can't forget about our fun favorite game, the blind rankings today, Carter.
That's right. I have some blind rankings queued up for Mason, and they're going to kind of play off a little bit of last week's blind rankings, and you'll find out what that means when we get there.
It's going to be an exciting day. I'm really excited. I am here. Even though I'm in my Darth Vader shirt, I have my Middle-earth mug, and I have my Hobbit sword, and I am ready to talk about the Hobbit. Before we get there, though, Carter, what are you reading right now?
I'm still reading The Lions of Al-Rusan, or Al-Rusain, however you say it. It's kind of a dense book and kind of a play off of Spanish. Like I said, it's like a fictional Spain. They call it Esperania instead of Spain. I'm getting there. I'll be done this weekend, and then I'm excited to kind of get my thoughts down about that book. How about you, Mason?
How long is this book? This is a long time for you to read a single book.
I know. It's just that I'm being slow, not that it's a huge book. So how about you? What are you reading?
So lately, I finished The Hunger of the Gods a couple days ago. And I started on a very popular romantasy, Onyx Storm, which many of our listeners probably know as part of the, what's the name of this series? The
Imperium.
The Imperium.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, they're pretty entertaining. There's some really good parts to it. There's a lot of things that are very cringe. I would compare it to the Twilight movies where, when the first time you read it or see it, you think it's really entertaining. And then as an adult, you see it and you're just like, I don't know how great that really is.
Hey, don't come at my Twilight movies.
But I would say there's actually a lot in these books that I really like, and I'm looking forward to reviewing them, the good and the bad. So far, it's been entertaining. There's been a lot going on already, a couple of spicy chapters in there. I think it'll be fun to review those books in the future. And here at the Brotagonists, we don't discriminate on what kind of fantasy you like. The Fourth Wing or, the Throne of Glass series, the romantasies is what gets you into fantasy. That's awesome. I think any reading is good reading, and anything that brings you into the show and brings you into this world is going to just be awesome.
I read Onyx Storm last year at this time, so I'm curious to see what you think about it, and pretty soon we'll be talking about Fourth Wing and all of that, so that'll be a fun episode.
Yeah, there'll be a lot for us to talk about there, and I'm sure there's a lot of book girlies that are going to be coming at our throats when we have some criticisms, but it'll be fun.
Have you read Twilight?
I heard the books are fantastic, but I've never read them.
So it's in Forks, Washington, right? Where it's like the rainiest, they say like the rainiest place in the United States or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they're vampires and they can't be in the sun. So misconception is that all of the movie was filmed in Washington, but actually like 90% of it was filmed in Oregon, where I am. So I've been to like 90% of the filming locations, all sprinkled around Oregon, and they're actually really cool. Me and my wife Amanda have a good time actually looking for them, and it's actually kind of fun. But
you've never taken me there.
Oh, I will. Anyway, so that brings us to our second book battle ever, and that's The Hobbit. Did you just reread The Hobbit?
I actually haven't reread The Hobbit for a really long time. I did just recently get a new copy of The Hobbit, which I really like.
Beautiful. It's the anniversary edition.
Yeah. For those that haven't read the book, it's actually not super thick. None of the Lord of the Rings or Hobbit books are really that thick. The movies expand quite a bit. And so it's a very doable read, like 300 or 400 pages. And for those that haven't ever read, I have a little synopsis that I prepared for you today.
It would probably take you longer to watch the Hobbit trilogy and the Lord of the Rings trilogy than it would to read the Hobbit.
Probably.
So I think that especially the extended editions of the movies make the books, like you might think that they're intimidating, but they're actually, like Mason said, pretty small. So
Anyways, I have a little synopsis here I'd like to read for those that haven't read The Hobbit or don't know much about it. I think it's a pretty popular one, but I'll still read it just for our audience members that haven't. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien follows Bilbo Baggins, a comfort-loving hobbit who is unexpectedly swept away on an adventure by the wizard Gandalf and a group of 13 dwarves. Their goal is to reclaim the dwarves' homeland and treasure from the dragon Smaug. Along the journey, Bilbo faces trolls, goblins, wolves, and giant spiders, and he discovers mysterious magic ring that helps him survive dangerous situations. Though timid at first, Bilbo gradually becomes clever and brave. The story ends with the defeat of Smaug and a great battle over the treasure. Bilbo returning home wiser, changed, and valuing friendship and courage over riches.
And do you have a ranking for this book?
Very curious as to what you ranked it. I have it at 8 out of 10 stars flat.
8 out of 10 stars.
Yes.
I read this book actually for the first time like 3 years ago, and I brushed up on it again for this episode, but I have it at an 8.5, as you might expect, a little higher because I just seem to be a little more high on the ratings for some reason. But I have good reasons, and I'm excited to let you know what they are.
Tell me these reasons why you ranked it at an 8.5.
Okay. First is its foundational impact. Okay. Because realistically, reading this book, if I had no context of who the author was, what it meant to modern fantasy as a whole, if I just read this book, didn't know anything about it, it would be a lower ranking. It might be in the 7s, but I have it at an 8.5 because people are going to look at this rating that we come out with and make a judgment. And it needs to reflect what this book means, I feel like. And not only has it helped define modern fantasy, published in 1937, some people think it's the first of the genre fantasy, but it's not. I mean, you want to go back hundreds and hundreds of years. What is it, 500 BC, or is it even further? Is it?
Well, it's probably further than that, like to Homer, the Iliad, and the Odyssey.
Is that 2,000 years? No, what is it?
I don't know when it was exactly written.
Don't laugh at my ignorance, everybody, but it's like hundreds of years before the birth of Christ. So that is kind of the first fantasy. But as far as modern fantasy goes, this is foundational. It has timeless readability. You could read this book to your children and they would understand it. Originally, it was actually a children's book, and then the tone was rewritten a little bit. J.R.R. Tolkien had said, but I feel like young people can read it, adults can read it, fanatics of fantasy like us can read it and enjoy it. And we can all enjoy it. So it kind of transcends generations. And I love that the heroism in the book is character driven. It's not brute force heroes swinging swords and axes, but the heroism comes from a small little hobbit using his brain, being clever, and using his heart, and he saves his companions multiple times. It's, I think, an 8.5, because as you say in your scale, an 8, you have to recommend it to anybody, and I think that's why you probably put it in an 8 and not lower, because I feel like everybody has to read The Hobbit. Even if you don't like fantasy, I feel like you have to read The Hobbit in this lifetime. And that's why I have it at 8.5, just to give it kind of a solid 8.
So I agree with everything that you said. I think the reason why I gave it an 8, it's a hard book to rank because the impact that it has, all of Tolkien's writing is, the template for 90% of fantasy written today. Even the Onyx Storm Fourth Wing series that I was just talking about is derivative of Tolkien with, the dragons that talk and stuff like that, and the magic from the system, wizard-esque beings. It's a lot of it's derivative of Tolkien. And so just like the impact alone, you're just like, you got to give it a relatively high ranking. And it is a good book. I don't think it's like how I would describe pretty much all of Tolkien's writing is he is the goat of world building, creating lore, backstories, histories, of creating a world. Like, he is the goat. He creates the template of everything. His storytelling is a little bit more dry. I think George R.R. Martin said that, he gets compared to Tolkien a lot as like American Tolkien, and he's said like, they're very different people, grew up in different eras where, George R. Martin is his job is an author. His job is to create stories and be a storyteller, where Tolkien is a linguist. He created languages. He studied languages. He pretty much wrote just these stories as a hobby, and then created all these things and got published. But he was like a college professor, so like this wasn't like his main job, and he was more into like the art of writing. It's different than being a storyteller. So I think like the storytelling in all of his books is a little bit dry, but you see like when they add a little bit of storytelling to his stories like they did in the movies, it's like just so fantastic and so great. For me, I think there's an argument to put it in the nines, but just like the dryness of the storytelling, and that it was originally written as a kid's book, and which is part of what makes it good too, because anyone can pick it up and read it. I enjoyed it as an adult, and I think most kids with probably a 4th grade reading level could pick it up and enjoy it as well. So I think it right there, for me, it just sits at a solid 8. You could recommend it to anyone. It's enjoyable. It's good. It is a good story, even if the storytelling is dry. I feel like it doesn't ever go super deep into any characters other than Bilbo, or really into the lore of Middle-earth in The Hobbit at the time. But honestly, solid. It's foundational. It's classic. And I think everyone that's picked it up to read it has like enjoyed it.
I feel like also when it's being considered dry, he's just describing things that could be looked at as boring. Like he'll describe a season, or he'll describe the forest. It takes him like a whole page to describe it, and it can be beautiful in its own way. And the English is beautiful. It's just feels dry because there's nothing happening in the story.
Well, like the writing is good. It's amazing. Yeah. But just like the pacing is a little bit off. It's a little bit bland. I can't think of an example specifically in The Hobbit, but like in The Lord of the Rings, like Two Towers, I think Helm's Deep is like a 5-page chapter, like the whole Battle of Helm's Deep. And there's like a whole hour and a half dedicated to it in the movie.
It's like people's favorite moment of Lord of the Rings.
And it's not like he describes the action scenes poorly. It's just like, it's not
his strength.
That's not his strength. Yeah. And like I said, the world building, the magic, the everything, like all around the story is perfect, but just like the telling of the story is just okay.
Yeah. I like his world building because it makes Middle-earth feel vast, but not overwhelming at the same time. A lot of authors can throw you into a fantasy world where you just feel overwhelmed with what's going on and all the new stuff you have to learn about the world. It feels vast like you want it to, but it's not overwhelming.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, especially like when we were reading Wheel of Time, I had to get like one of those guides. It's like 800 pages long to like, all right, who is this person? Who is this place? Like it's a 14-book series and several countries, several cities, and you just lose track of it all. But really, Middle-earth feels like a whole world and feels big, but at the same time you're not ever lost with where people are. You're just like, oh yeah, they're in Rohan. Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, I know where that is on the map.
Yeah.
Oh, they're in Mordor. Oh yeah, that's on the far right side of the map.
And he doesn't make his cities hard to pronounce. They're like usually like 2 syllables or something like that, like Rohan, Mordor, Gondor. They're easy. Whereas like some books I read, it's like, I can't even think of an example off the top of my head, but they're just kind of like crazy.
Even like in Stormlight, I get like some of like the different races of people and Roshar mixed up.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to Wheel of Time, I couldn't even name more than maybe 2 Aes Sedai, but you learn the names of like maybe 50. And Robert Jordan just wants you to remember them all. I think even I saw an interview with Brandon Sanderson. Somebody was asking him about the Wheel of Time, and he finished the last 3 books, as you know, but he's like, not even I, who wrote the final 3 books, could remember all the names of the characters in the books. But it's like that. I like how Tolkien makes things memorable.
No, he really does keep it simple. And where do you think we go? Should I come up a little bit? Should you go down a little bit?
Trying to rate this book coming into this, I was just trying to give it a solid score. And I was looking at all the books I ranked in the past, and I was like, it's worthy of an 8.5. But if we're going to go off of how much we think people will enjoy the book, I'm willing to come down to like an 8.1.
I was willing to go up to an 8.3. I was like, if we gave Fairy Tale 7.9, Hobbit's gotta be.
And that's what I saw from last week. I'm like 7.9 and then Hobbit's just 0.1 above it. How about we settle at a 8.2?
Like I could do 8.2. I do like this is the thing for me with Fairy Tale is I think The Hobbit's vastly better. Fairy Tale might be a little bit more entertaining, but I think Hobbit's a better book and I enjoy The Hobbit a lot more.
Yeah. I think that with Fairy Tale, not to go back on what we've already talked about, but I think with Fairy Tale, it's just easier language for, modern English, it's just easier to digest. And so that's kind of one of the reasons I would recommend people read it. But The Hobbit, I think everybody should read. And so I would rank it higher.
If it's ranked above an 8, everyone can read it and enjoy it.
Everybody should read The Hobbit. I mean, even if you don't like fantasy or sci-fi, and you know what? If you don't like fantasy or sci-fi, you just haven't given it a shot. So give it a shot and read The Hobbit and become a little bit more cultured than you were before you read The Hobbit.
If there was, for me, one book to recommend someone to just dip their toes in to see if it's like, okay, a short read that's a classic, The Hobbit is the one. So if you're thinking about dipping your toes into fantasy, this is my first recommendation for you.
Would you like to announce our official protagonist rating?
The Hobbit by John Ronald Rowles Tolkien is ranked 8.2 out of 10. I think it's very fitting. The official score, 8.2.
8.2. I like it. Okay, moving on to our next segment, another mythic matchup presented by Very Good Industries. Once again, thank you, Very Good Industries. And just so you guys know, that's an inside joke between me and Mason. That's our future company that encompasses all companies. Yeah. They're all very good.
It provides dentistry as well as creates beef jerky.
And owns restaurants and everything like that. So we have today an epic duel between, is it a duel or a fight? Is it a fight? I guess we have to establish that first.
I think it's a duel where they're each allowed like 2 things in there with them. Like Boromir would be his shield and his sword, and the Hound would be his sword, and I don't know what else I've ever seen him with, his armor.
Today's matchup is Boromir from Lord of the Rings and the Hound, Sandor Clegane from Game of Thrones. And I will be arguing for the Hound, and Mason will be arguing for Boromir, which our whole friendship, I've known that Boromir is one of his favorite characters in fantasy. So it had to be.
My heart bleeds for Boromir. I just want to start by saying this is a hard one to debate. Like, these are 2 fighters that are both extremely durable. The amount of like abuse that they take in their movies and respective books is quite a lot. Like Boromir gets shot with 3 arrows and is still fighting. He gets hit by a cave troll and still gets up and kills more orcs. He has like the best last stand moment in all of cinema. And then the Hound too, he's a tough guy. The amount of nearly gets killed like 2 or 3 times in the show. And, they both like have some good stories. But for me, the reason why Boromir would take this fight, if they were allowed any preparation at all, like they don't just like stumble across each other in the woods. If they're like, all right, you're like knives at dawn, like show up with like your weapons to fight. Boromir brings a torch lit with fire. The Hound's going to completely shut down and lose. Where I feel like Boromir doesn't, other than like, the only weakness that you see in Boromir in the entire movies and books is he falls to the temptation of the power of the ring, which is irrelevant in a duel, where I don't see why you couldn't fight with a torch in one hand and a sword in another hand in a duel like this. And Boromir dies by arrows, which I've never seen the Hound shoot an arrow, so I think that would be a useless weapon for him. And the Lord of the Rings, like the Uruk-hai and the orcs, even though not portrayed perfectly in the movies, they're significantly stronger than men and humans in general. Boromir, like, has like his last stand, just taking them all down. Like he probably kills over like 60 in the movies and several in the books. And in the books, he's actually stuck with like several arrows, not just 3 to this tree, and has like just littered with orcs around him. And so, just to take out that many, I've never seen the Hound do anything like that. I got to give it to Boromir.
The death scene of Boromir is the best in cinema history. I agree. But in the duel, I've never seen a duel fought with a torch. And also, But
what about a flaming sword? Because that does happen in Game of Thrones.
That's true. I just don't think I didn't come into this expecting that Boromir would have intimate knowledge of the childhood fears of the Hound. Okay, but if he did, then I would think Boromir takes it. But I'm going to assume he doesn't. And I just have to bring up the Hound's relentless, brutal strength. He's got to be twice as strong as Boromir. He is like, what is he? He's like 7 foot tall and just absolutely strong, like just yoked. He's just like huge. And he's literally the main bodyguard for whoever's sitting on the Iron Throne. And his brother, the Mountain, becomes like an absolute monster who he ends up defeating in the end. And yes, it was a suicide mission basically, but the Hound and his strength, I think he just comes charging at Boromir, and I don't know if Boromir can handle his relentless onslaught of sword strikes. His sword alone has got to be as tall as Boromir. But the thing about Boromir is he is a trained warrior of Gondor, and he's got to be one of the best swordsmen in fantasy. Probably not as good as Aragorn, but definitely up there. But I find it hard to believe that he could take down the Hound. I find it hard to believe anybody could take down the Hound until I saw Brienne of Tarth, who's also 7 foot tall, just coming at him. And I feel like where Boromir might match or exceed in skill, I feel like Boromir has much more honor than the Hound, and he may hesitate at that killing blow, whereas the Hound has no hesitation in his murderous strikes of the sword. And so, do I think Boromir could win that fight? Sometimes. But do I think the Hound is going to take him down the majority of the time? I do. So I don't know. It's a real tough one. They're elite swordsmen.
I think to summarize something that you said and that I would agree with is the Hound definitely stronger, definitely meaner, and definitely has a physical edge on Boromir. But I would say that Boromir probably has a skill and a knowledge, and let's just call it skill to summarize it, swordsmanship, that would beat the Hound. In my opinion, that sixes were pretty even, depending on where it's fought, how it's fought. So someone else might come on top. So now I think it comes down to who is more durable. And that is a hard debate. Like the physical abuse that he gets from the Mountain in their last fight and is able to keep going, that is impressive. Is it as impressive as getting hit by a cave troll and getting up and, taking multiple arrows and still fighting Uruk-hai that are twice your size?
And
that's a hard debate.
A cave troll is definitely bigger than the Hound. So I'll give you that. But if the Hound makes it a quick fight, he's got it. I think if Boromir has the chance to circle and fend off some blows, that Boromir might take it. But
does Boromir get his shield, or do they just each have a sword?
Yeah, Boromir has a shield. I mean, Boromir's trained with a shield. A weakness of the Hound is he doesn't fight with a shield. And I mean, the more fantasy books you read, the more you realize what a shield can do for you. But he is trained with the sword and shield. Boromir is. And that's bad for the Hound. That's bad for the Hound. But like I said before, Boromir has more honor, and I think he might hesitate at the last blow.
I feel really torn here. Part of me is just like the Hound is just so big and tough and mean that, at least in the movie, in the books, it says Boromir was a great sized man, but it doesn't really describe how big he is. But
that makes it so that we have to go off of the movie.
And Sean Bean did an amazing job, but is kind of an average sized guy. Definitely not small, but he wasn't like the Hound.
I think I read somewhere that Sean Bean has died. This could totally be a lie, but I thought I read this last week that Sean Bean has died 29 times on screen in his career.
I've seen him die at least 4 or 5. So part of in my head just wants to be like, you know what? I'd probably give it to the Hound 6 out of 10 times. But I don't know. For me, there's just something about this man of honor who is just trying so hard to be good and do the right thing and makes a mistake and then comes out of nowhere to save the hobbits and redeem himself. And this the desperation he had and how he just put him. If the hobbits would have just ran away, they would have gotten away, but they just stayed there and watched him fight, which ruined his sacrifice. And I just think of I remember as a kid just they're gonna die. Like he's coming with the axe, and I see Boromir running, and you're just like, oh my gosh, he's gonna save him, and it's just like so epic. And I'm like, no, I can't go against this guy who gave me like one of my favorite scenes in fantasy, and right there. So I'm like, I gotta go. I still think Boromir would win, even though like in my head I'm just like, yeah, it's probably the Hound, but my heart says Boromir, and I'm sticking with Boromir.
You choose the side of honor.
Yeah.
All right. You were actually convincing me. I was going to back off a little bit and say it would be more 50-50, but if you say 6 out of 10, the Hound, I like it.
I think we might need to put this one to the vote as well.
I agree. I think we should put all of them to the vote unless we come up with a real decision.
Yeah. I can't do my boy Boromir like that. I can't go against him. I got to stick with it.
My gosh. Okay, we are at one of our favorite segments, the blind rankings. And this week, I have prepared blind rankings for Mason, whereas last week he prepared blind rankings for me. I had to rank 5 swords from fantasy movies or books. And this week, what I have for you, Mason, is ranking best fantasy swordsman.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Just because we're already talking about it.
They got to be swordsmen I actually know, though.
You do.
All right, perfect.
Unfortunately, Thorin's not in there, but you might want to get out Narsil.
He's right here.
Aragorn.
That's so hard because like in the movies, he's like so good and smooth and rugged and perfect like in every way. But at the same time, we don't ever, other than his fight with Lurtz at the end of Fellowship of the Ring, which isn't really like a swordsman duel other than just like an epic fight. You don't really see Aragorn do any crazy swordsman tricks or anything. For that reason, I just feel like you're going to give me something difficult. I'm going to put Aragorn at number 2.
I like where that's at. Like last week, I put Narsil at number 2. Next one is Lan Mandragoran from The Wheel of Time.
I don't want to spoil too many things in these podcasts, but
you can speak to his ability with the sword, I feel like.
Yeah, just like how he faces down people with magic just with his sword, especially in some of the later books. You're just like, that's pretty dang impressive. Got great durability, and as a leader, he's a king. Very similar story arcs to Aragorn, actually. I remember thinking when I read the first Wheel of Time, I'm like, this is a Lord of the Rings ripoff in a lot of ways. And I was like, they totally made the slang guy just like Aragorn.
That's what I thought in Eye of the World.
But he's still at the same time not Aragorn. But he is epic. He is great.
But also he trains Rand in the sword.
Yeah. And he has a hair-marked blade. I'm gonna go number 3 for Lan. I'll Lan Mandragoran.
Okay, next one is Geralt of Rivia.
I'm just not attached to the Witcher series at all. I've read 2 of the books. I've watched the shows, and you do see some epic moments, and he has like a pretty cool sword. He just doesn't lure me in. So I'm gonna put him at 5.
Okay. How about Drizzt Do'Urden?
Gosh, I think I'm going to make the same mistake you did. Drizzt, for those that don't know, is from the Legend of Drizzt series by, which is like 30 books of several different trilogies by R.A. Salvatore. I've only read the Dark Elf trilogy. I'll be reading the Crystal Shard trilogy this year.
Same.
He has 2 scimitars that he uses. It seems like he's a really good swordsman. Like he doesn't ever lose or really even break a sweat.
Yeah. It's like effortless for him almost.
I also love how like whenever he just like knows he's gonna fight and he's talking to someone, he's like, I think not, and breaks him out.
Yeah, he's so good.
But I can't put him at number 1 because he's not. I can't put him above Aragorn and Lan. So
you're gonna put him at 4?
I'm putting him at 4, which might be a big mistake leaving my number 1 for the.
We'll see.
Okay, Drizzt.
You ready?
4. Yep.
Well, I guess you don't have any decisions to make. But your number 1 is Jaime Lannister.
Okay, that's acceptable. Like, it's not where I'd put him, but he's still an epic swordsman from an epic series, and they've hinted several times in both the show. I haven't read the books yet, but I'm assuming it's in the books that Jaime is like one of the best swordsmen to ever live, ever. And you definitely see him do a couple of cool things with the sword. And I remember watching the series and them making a comment like, yeah, it took 10 of our guys to actually take him down, to detain him. And then they make comments about other great swordsmen later, like, oh yeah, he took down 2 of our men or 3 of our men. I'm like, Jaime took down 10. which is pretty impressive. So I think that is an acceptable one to leave at number 1. And I am not a perfect list, but overall I am happy with it. The blind rankings for epic fantasy swordsmen. Number 1, Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones. Number 2, Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. Number 3, Alan Mandragoran from The Wheel of Time. Number 4, Drizzt from The Legend of Drizzt. And number 5, Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher.
Sounds good.
I love blind
And
rankings. That's a fun game.
yeah, what's up next for us?
Up next is our Watchtower review, where we're going right back to our Middle-earth kind of theme for the day.
I watched the 3 Hobbit movies in preparation for today, and I had some notes that I want to talk about, but I wanted you to start off because this was your idea.
Yeah, so the Hobbit trilogy can go a few ways with a lot of people. I would say this is the trend I have seen. If you grew up with Lord of the Rings and loving Lord of the Rings, you liked the Hobbits, but you acknowledged the fact that they were not nearly as good as the Lord of the Rings original trilogy. If you didn't grow up with Lord of the Rings and you got introduced by a friend later in life, like I have done to several of my friends, they tend to like the Hobbits a little bit better. I think the pacing is a little bit better for the Hobbits. In my opinion, Lord of the Rings trilogy is the best trilogy in cinema history. It is as close as you can get to a 10 out of 10 in anything cinema, in my opinion. But the Hobbits are also fantastic. I don't think they're nearly as good as the Lord of the Rings, but I would give them like solid like rankings in the 8.5 out of 10. Music is fantastic. The acting is overall pretty good. The CGI is better than what they're coming out with today, especially in Marvel. And the characters are good. I think a lot of what they added in that wasn't in the books was really good and still true to the story at the same time. But I love the Hobbit trilogy, and I've even shown it to my fiance, and she saw it.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And she enjoyed watching them with me. I got her to watch Lord of the Rings with me, and she was always like willing and happy and enjoyed it. But she like asked me like, "Oh, can we keep watching the Hobbits?" And you know, it was really fun to watch those with her and to get her kind of into it.
For those of you that don't know, Mason just got engaged a couple weeks ago, so we're very, very excited for him. And shout out to Yuriko.
Yeah, that's my fiance.
Okay,
but yeah, that's kind of my initial take on it.
Yeah, well, I don't have like an official take, but I have things to discuss with you because I know you know more about Middle Earth than I do. Azog the Defiler is basically the main bad guy, the main on-screen bad guy, because of course Sauron is the big baddie. And by the way, Watchtower reviews are spoiler alerts, okay? Because in Watchtower reviews, we talk about everything that comes to mind. In the book battle, those are spoiler free, or we try to at least. But the Watchtower review, big spoiler alert. So Azog the Defiler, he is the main bad guy. He has fought Thorin Oakenshield before. And does Thorin get his last name Oakenshield from the battle with Azog, where he uses the big oak branch as a shield, or is it just his last name?
It is from the battle where he uses that oak branch, at least
yeah, okay. So he's the big bad guy, and he's not the bad guy in the book. He doesn't even exist in the book.
He does exist in the book. They mention him once at the beginning, so he was a pale Gundabad orc that did kill Thorin's grandfather.
Okay.
So they did stay true to that part of Azog the Defiler in the story, where they added him, which I thought, if you're going to make a trilogy out of this kind of short book, it wasn't a bad thing to add in there. And I thought it made it slightly more entertaining, is to have kind of that rivalry between Thorin and Azog, where he's hunting Thorin and then, you know, the leader of the orc armies. It kind of gives more purpose to the Battle of the Five Armies than just, oh, we're pissed off that you killed the Goblin King.
The 5 armies, I was trying to count them during the movie, but it still doesn't make sense. So we've got, it should be easy to count to 5, but it wasn't. We've got the elf army shows up first, and then we have the dwarf army shows up, and then we have Azog's army shows up. And then I'm assuming that the Agmar's army from the north is the 4th army, or who is
So the armies are elves, dwarves, and then the men. I don't know why they made it in the movies like them just not have an army, but they had like a real army in the books.
Okay,
So
that's right.
armies of men, orcs, eagles.
The Eagles? No way.
Yeah, the
There's like
eagles.
20 Eagles.
They're still an army.
All right. I'd
It's
call
the
that
fifth
more of
army.
like a squadron or like a troop.
Still representing the eagle army.
Okay. And by the way, is that all the eagles, or do you think that there's like a big nest of more eagles somewhere?
The eagles are like their own species in Middle Earth. Like there's like a population of them. It's like in the books they're not like as uncommon or like not as random. Like, oh, the eagles are showing up to save the day again.
So going back to The Hobbit, the first movie, the stone giants are absolutely massive. Like how there's like 3 of them just punching each other and throwing boulders at each other.
I don't know a ton about the stone giants. I think in the movies they were just like, this is an opportunity for us to show off our CGI skills. We're gonna go super hard.
They're just like totally boxing each other and like it's throwing whole mountains at each other. It's crazy. They're huge. Stone giants, absolutely massive. The Goblin King. Why is the Goblin King bigger than all the other goblins by like 10 times?
I don't know.
Why does he have a goiter that's like hanging down to his chest? It's crazy. And I like when they're escaping, which the escape scene out of the mountain with the goblins is pretty cool, I thought.
That is a pretty good sequence.
And then the Goblin King shows back up trying to block their exit. And he's like, oh, who are you to stand against me? And then he just, was it Thorin or Gandalf? They just slices his neck and his stomach. And he's like, oh, that'll do it.
Yep.
Oh boy, that was funny. But that's what I have on the first movie. The second movie, do you know, I didn't know why Bilbo's sword was named Sting. Do you know why?
I'm pretty sure it's the same way in the books that the spiders say that it stings.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I thought was cool is I didn't realize that he could understand the spiders only when he has the one ring on, which makes sense. But it's interesting. Do the spiders speak black speech? They must.
Yes.
So yeah, the spider's like, he gets stabbed in the face by Bilbo's sword, and his sword doesn't have a name yet. And then the spider's like, oh, that stings. And then he's like, oh, Sting. That's a good name. It was also crazy. I didn't realize that Gandalf got his sword and Thorin got his sword and Bilbo got his sword all in that cave that the trolls were guarding in the movie.
Glambring the foe hammer.
So cool.
Orcris the goblin cleaver. Sting the letter opener.
It's just weird to me that Gandalf wasn't carrying a sword before, ever. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, this will do. Like
he's got a staff and magic.
Hundreds of years later. And speaking of his staff, when he's battling Sauron in Dol
Guldur.
Which is an awesome battle sequence, light and dark, going head to head. But his staff, like he holds it up and then it totally just disintegrates. And then I was like, wait, how does he get a staff? And then later on, Radagast gives him his staff, which I thought like the staff was super personal to the wizard, and it wasn't working for him in the battle, actually. Radagast staff wasn't working for Gandalf in the battle. Did you see, what's the redhead dwarf's name? Do you remember? Gimli's father?
Gloin.
He's like, Gloin. I forget who's looking.
It was Legolas is looking at his wallet, like pictures. Yeah. He's like, what is this creature, your brother? That's my wife.
And he's like, and then who's this mutant goblin?
That's my wee lad, Gimli.
That's my wee lad, Gimli. That's hilarious. Legolas and Gimli become best friends in Lord of the Rings, but Legolas calls a picture of Gimli, he calls a mutant goblin child. I thought that was hilarious because that's just so representative of their friendship. Yeah. That was pretty hilarious.
So the one thing I actually just don't like about the trilogies that kind of starts taking place during the second movie, The Desolation of Smaug, is the relationship between Tauriel and Keely. It's like they didn't dedicate enough time to it to make it actually something. And it was just kind of like unneeded. Like the story was good enough by itself to not have it in there.
I was going to say that the dwarf and elf love story is lame. Like they see each other for a total of 10 minutes and all of a sudden they love each other and they never even say the word love. The first time they kiss, he is dead. They never kiss. She kisses him after he dies, and then Thranduil, the king of the woodland elves, is like, no, it was true love. That's why you're feeling this way.
Because it was real.
because it was real. And I'm like, what?
Which I loved Lee Pace as Thranduil, and I liked both the characters, Tario and Keely. Like I liked all those characters, but I was like, maybe if like you started drawing this out and having it more in from like Unexpected Journey to all the way through Battle of Five Armies. They did, like, it was like 15 minutes of time we had previously to like the romance of it.
Yeah, exactly. Did Thorin die in the book?
Yeah, he does. They did say true to that Thorin dies and Philly and Killy both.
And who? I just watched the third movie last night, and I still didn't pick up on who is ruling Erebor after their deaths.
You said you watched the extended version, right? They crowned Dane to be
Dane.
the Thorin's cousin.
He's bald on top.
He's the one that showed up riding a pig.
I did see that he was crowned. Yes, he's awesome. I did see that he was crowned, but I thought he was already like the king of his own land, and so I wasn't.
He was Lord of the Iron Island.
Lord Iron Hill, and so I had assumed that he was wearing a crown because he was the Lord of the Iron Hills, but that makes way more sense. He looks like a king.
And they mention him often in Lord of the Rings that they're trying to like Sauron like sent the Nazgul to Erebor to try to persuade him to join with Sauron.
Dane is awesome. He comes in on that pig and insults the elves, and so the dwarves start to charge the elves, and then the elves release like a bunch of arrows at him, and then the dwarves release like these anti-arrow things, and he calls them the twirly whirlies. Like, release the twirly whirlies or something like that.
I think it's twiddly whittlies.
Yeah. And they just are awesome. I hadn't seen something like that actually. That was so fun. And okay, so Dane was crowned. That's probably for the best. I don't understand why Thorin, son of Thrain, son of Thror, is so susceptible to the sickness of the gold. Thrain had the sickness, and also Thror had the sickness. And what is it about them that makes them more susceptible to dragon sickness?
I don't know. It's kind of one of those things, if you buy it or you don't. It's just kind of like it's like in Lord of the Rings when Aragorn's like afraid that he's gonna be susceptible to the power of the ring because Isildur was.
Yeah.
And I think there is something to be said that there is something in blood where I never thought I would, but I act and talk just like my dad. And like when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, I won't be like my dad when I grow up. I'm like very different. And now I see myself, I sit like him. I talk like him. I say the same things when I see traffic or talk to stupid people. And I look like him, and we have similar interests and hobbies. He's not really into the whole fantasy books things, but other things, and food.
But he's a dental surgeon. He's an
orthodontist.
He's an orthodontist, and you are a dentist.
So there is something to be said that your strengths and weaknesses comes from your blood. And maybe Thror was like susceptible to it because, the power and everything, gets to him, and the same weakness goes down. And Gandalf did make a comment that dragon sickness affects everyone that comes near it, or near everyone.
Yeah, he did. So basically, dragon sickness, the longer a dragon is around gold, that gold kind of takes on sickness, and that sickness is seen through jealousy, or what's the right word? Greed, exactly. And that's why Bilbo kept the Arkenstone away from Thorin.
Yeah. Great movies. Do you have any other comments you want to make about the Hobbits?
I had a question. I didn't know if you knew if the Arkenstone had any powers or not.
As far as I know, it doesn't, other than it's kind of like one of those things where it symbolizes like your right to rule.
All right. Well, that makes sense. But the other thing was that Galadriel is so powerful. All of a sudden, she's super powerful in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And is it because of her ring of power, or does she have innate power?
I think all the elves have like some innate power. It does hint at a little bit of Galadriel's power in the Rings of Power, that she has like some gift of foresight, but it doesn't go into it super deep. They definitely made her more of a warrior, which is definitely off from her character in all of Tolkien's writing. I'm guessing some of her power does come from the Ring of Power that she has, and she does use it in the Hobbits, which is kind of cool. She just slices that orc.
Yeah, and in that same fight scene, she kind of gets knocked down a little bit, and then she brings out her other personality. She's like a duo personality, where like she looks
You
up,
have no power here,
and she's kind of evil looking and dark. I don't understand that, but
servant of Morgoth.
yeah, I don't understand her dual personality, but her dark side is super powerful.
Yeah, that's they don't have that in the books, but
Yeah. A lot of the movies is not in the books, but that's what makes them both so fun to experience. It's like super fun to experience the books and the movies because they're different. I think a lot of people get mad at is that a lot of movies and books, not just Lord of the Rings, that the movies don't follow exactly what the books are, but it's hard to adapt books to movies, and it is called an adaptation, not a
recreation.
word recreation. Exactly. So that's what I've been having to convince myself of is it's an adaptation, not a recreation.
Yeah. And maybe it's because I got to the movies first. I tend to like the Lord of the Rings movies better than the books.
Yeah.
Personally. For those, have you ever seen the 1970s Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit cartoons?
So good.
That is definitely closer to the tone of Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings tone, I feel like the movies have a darkness, kind of eeriness to them, you just think of the Nazgul and kind of this dungeons of the deep intensity, where the cartoons is definitely more we're gonna sing a song every 5 pages, and it's definitely more accurate to the books.
If you watch all 3 extended versions, that's 9 hours of your time. So there's a lot to talk about. But I think that brings us to the end of the segment, unless you have anything else.
I hope we inspired those that haven't seen The Hobbit to see them and maybe cleared up some things in the movies. And there's so much more we could have talked about. So maybe we'll come back to The Hobbits again one day.
Next, we have the weapon of wisdom for this week. And it's my turn to give a quote and an idea from a book and kind of extrapolate a little bit on it. Going over The Hobbit and watching those movies, it made me think of how Bilbo left the Shire and went on this grand adventure and then came back a totally changed person inside. And I think that's a big theme of the book is his journey and his personal change, becoming heroic, becoming brave, becoming more, and how experiences, change you and make you more or different. But the quote that I have that relates really well to this is in the book, The Ashes of Man by Christopher Rocchio. And that's the 5th book in the Sun Eater series, which if you haven't read that series, it's probably my favorite completed series of all time. And people that have finished that series say the same thing. Very good. But Christopher Rocchio says, and I'm just going to read this, "One cannot step in the same river twice. Home is not home when you return, for you are not yourself. The man you were yesterday died yesterday and is only a piece of the man of today, as you will be tomorrow." And that's a paraphrase of Herculides, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but 500 BC. He's known for his idea of change, life being about change, and change being ever present in life. And it just makes me think of you aren't just a static self. Each day you're reshaped by experience, choice, and circumstance. I like the quote because it challenges the ideas of regret, I wish, or nostalgia, complacency. This is just who I am. The fear of change, which I have struggled with a lot in my life, especially when I was younger, dealing with the fear of change, not wanting things to change because I was happy with how they were, or scared of how they would turn out, or scared of not being the same person that I was right then, thinking, I'll lose myself. But change, it's not tragic, it's just growth. And today matters a lot more than you think. And that's kind of what I wanted to leave you guys with.
Tackling change can be hard and intimidating, but I love that. Love that share. Well, Protagonist Nation, we just have a couple minutes here to wrap up. I'm just going to do a brief summary of everything we talked about today. We started with our book battle, discussing a ranking for The Hobbit, the book that is, and we gave it an official protagonist ranking of 8.2 out of 10. And then we had our mythic matchups, where It was Boromir from Lord of the Rings versus the Hound from Game of Thrones. And Carter and I could not come to an agreement once again. So we will be taking to our Instagram stories to see who people think would win in the fight.
Once again.
And then we did blind rankings for epic swordsmen, and then go back in the video to see how I ranked those. Then we have our Watchtower review, where we discuss the Hobbit trilogy, the movies, which are quite a bit different from the book, but I love them just as much. And then we had our Weapon of Wisdom from Carter about change, and I recommend going back to re-listen to his beautiful share on dealing with change. And that will do it for episode 2 of the Brotagonists.
Thanks, everybody, and have a great week.